Hi, welcome to ADQ's Drinking Water Sanitary Surveys presented by Stephen Vogel. I am inspector here for drinking water in ADQ, and this is going to be about what to expect when you're inspected. So, who do we inspect? We'll start off a little background here that any water system that has 15 service connections or all water systems that regularly serve an average of 25 individuals at least 60 days out of the year will be prone to a sanitary survey. Community systems, they are every 3 years. Occasionally, you can be an outstanding performer and it'll be every 5 years, but we like to do the 3 year community water systems and then 5 years for non-transient and transient non-community systems. Drinking water system layout looks a lot like this. You start off with a well, or it could be a spring, river, creek. You could be surface water from a lake, goes through a treatment plant, and then it goes on to storage, and then an entry point to the distribution system is generally falls storage. Not all water systems do have EPDSs after storage. Some have EPDSs before storage tank as the storage tank is within the distribution lines. But either way, the EPDS needs to be placed before the first service connection to any of your customers. Now, what does ADQ inspectors expect? Well, the expectation from ADQ is that your water system will be in compliance at the time of the inspection. Water system owners and their operators are responsible for protecting the health of your customer by maintaining your system in compliance at all times. Now, ADQ inspectors will provide the system with information needed to be in compliance, like the pre-inspection checklist that we'll go over later in this slides. What is a sanitary survey inspection? The survey is based on a physical inspection of the water systems, including how the system is operated and maintained. So this is assuring that the drinking water is safe by identifying any of the sanitary defects or problems that may affect the safety of the water. Now we have three types of inspections. First one's going to be an ADQ file review. Now this is required also for sanitary surveys. However, a complaint response inspection may not have a site visit. So it may just be a review of the file. We call up the complainant and we'll call up the system and see what is going on with this complaint. Now, level 2 assessments do require a site visit. Level 1 assessments are generally done by the system. Now, there is an unannounced sanitary survey inspection that does also require file review. However, in this stance, the system is only given about 48 hours or less that we are showing up to review them. So the operator may not be able to show up the next day, but we try to get them to show up the following day. The announced sanitary survey is what we're going to go over today, and it starts out with an ADQ file review prior to the announced survey. So when we announce it, it's generally over the phone. We want to call and we want to find out whether or not the operator or maintenance, could be the owner, can be on a date and time that we agree upon, and it's usually 2 weeks prior to the inspection. Then after that phone call, either the day after or the same day, the ADQ inspector should follow up the email where the date and time is confirmed, where a meeting location is going to be taking place. So they're going to be at the office, or we could do a site location if the system is large and we'll meet out in the field. Then a reminder that the ADQ inspectors in this email no longer climb storage tanks. So it's required for the system to get photos of the hatch gasket seal and the air vent screen on each storage tank. A request for all sampling plans will be made in that email. And we're going to be looking for MSSP, lead and copper plans, disinfectant byproduct plan, and if you're a community system, of course, you'll have an emergency operation plan. And then in the email, of course, the compliance assistant coordinator will be attached to that. They will be copied, and they may even respond to you, letting you know that you are lacking in some type of reporting or monitoring status. Then a review of the system's last sanitary survey may be attached or just may be talked about in the email, letting you know what things were a problem at the last sanitary survey, or they may not have found anything, and they'll inform you on that too. Now, there's going to be an ADQ attached pre-inspection checklist for non-community, transient non-communities, or if you're a transient system. They are three different sheets, so usually you're one of the three. Now, steps to take for a compliant inspection would be have a knowledgeable person available. A person with the keys just to open up and let you walk in, or let the inspector walk in may not be good enough, because we may look at something that is not right, but it is right, but the maintenance man has no idea that it is looking like it should. Now, you can look at your monitoring history at the Safe Drinking Water Information System. These are active. You can just put your cursor over it and it'll take you to it once you click on it. And the site below it is the same location. It's just two different ways to click on it. And then you can review any documents sent by ADQ, especially the pre-inspection checklist that will always be in the email. So anything else that we attach, please open it up. It might be a new lead and copper site sampling plan that we want you to fill out, because it may not have been signed or the information is old. So if you click on one of those blue uh, signs there on the last slide, it'll take you to this site to where you can type in your system number, or you can put in the water system's name. Either way. So the day of the inspection, the inspector should show up and show you his photo identification card and notice of inspection rights to be signed. This is what the notice of inspection rights currently look like, and it'd be filled out prior to us showing up, and all we need is your signature. The small business bill of rights are occasionally attached to this, but most systems are not small businesses, or operators are not the business of the system. So on the day of the inspection, after we go through the presenting the photo ID and the source of the inspection rights to be signed, we look through paperwork. This is going to involve sampling plans. So if you have all these plans need to be presented. Records of analytical data. If the system is out of compliance, we will give you a heads up prior to us showing up. Hopefully you will find these records and present them to the inspector. The inspector would like to have a copy, and we'll bring it back to iron out that violation. Maintenance logs and yearly backflow testing is a requirement. So if you have backflows that are testable, we'll want to see all of them that passed or failed, and a violation may be written up for failed backflow testing. If the repair wasn't done, you would definitely get an NOV if you did not do the testing. There's other documents that we would like to see. Approval to construct and approval of construction paperwork if you have new components in the last 5 years. Then we're going to go through a physical component walkthrough of your facility, and you shall attend also. So the sampling plans will go back to, one is MSSP, which all public water systems are required to have, copper and lead sampling plan. They're for community systems and non-transient, non-water systems, non-community water systems. Disinfectant byproduct plan, DBPs, and also maximum residual disinfectant level. These are called MRDLs. We also have these for community water systems that chlorinate. non-transient, non-community water systems that also use a residual disinfectant other than ultraviolet light. Now, if you receive water that is treated from another system, well, you will be required to have this plan also, as you are sampling for MSSP. You should be taking your maximum risk disinfectant level. And of course, for community systems only, you have emergency operation plans. We'll go over these as we go through the slides. If you go to the website here at www.azdaq.gov, sanitary survey, you will find the MSSP sampling plan for your system. If you are less than 1,000 and only need to take one sample, download the MSSP for population less than 1,000. If you're over and required to take more than one sample per month, then you download the second one, which has more than 1,000 people population. Also on the same website location is the lead and copper plant for community systems and non-transient non-community. So all communities and non-transient community water systems are required to have the lead and copper sampling plan, and you can download this plan at this location or off of this website or off of this slide. Going on with the same website, there is the disinfectant byproduct plan that you can download also. It's a stage 2 DBP plan. It is required for community and non-transient, non-community water systems that use a primary residual disinfectant other than ultraviolet light. Download it. On the first page of the inspection report, when they get going, we'll have all the information about the system, the operator, even the inspector's information will be on there, and the classification of the system, system grade, and service connections. And where it says compliance summary, certified operator, yes or no, this means if the operator is certified to the correct system grade. Generally, we know a yes or no right away before the inspection starts, and we also know about monitoring and recording. So these might already be marked no before the inspection even starts, but the physical facility, we wait until the end of the inspection to say whether or not it is a compliance. So there's 9 elements of the sanitary survey. We go over the sources, all security, security around wells, security around booster pumps, finished water storage, and even treatment facilities. And in the inspection report, we'll go over the treatment process if you are treating your water, with the distribution lines, which is mainly whether or not it is charged at 20 psi or above. We'll look at finished water storage, pump facilities, and the controls. Of course, we'll know about the monitoring and reporting data verification before we get started. We'll look at the water systems management and operations and the operator's compliance with state certifications, which is generally known prior to the inspection. On page 2 of our inspection report, you'll see where we'll start with sources. And sources are wells, springs, creeks, rivers, and lakes. And as you see, we'll go down. If you're a groundwater under the influence of surface water, that's a yes or no question. It's not non-applicable. So we need to know whether or not this is going on. So then we'll continue on down. We'll look at raw water sample tap. We'll look at the entry point, the distribution system. Generally, that is nearby. If not, we'll come back and find it and make sure it's tagged for the map people. Or if you're not on map, we still want it identified. We'll look at the air vent to see if it terminates at 2 feet above the slab with the number 16 mesh screen. And if you do have air release valve, they need to be screened also. On the second page of this, we'll see that you need to have restrictions around your well. As you see the photos down below, there's no fencing around any of these water supplies. The one in the middle is a spring, and there's a trail that leads up to this location without any restrictions. So they need to put something up around that. The other one is a surface water intake that looks like Anybody can walk on up to it, and there is a small lock on it, but it still looks like you could mess with it, and we would want to have security around that intake. We'll look at the slabs. So these are slabs that we might find out there. We would like to see them sealed like the picture above in the center there. And we don't want to see the crack look like it needs the whole case, the whole cement slab replaced. We'll look at vegetation around your well and if there's any erosion around your well, like the one you see in the middle at the bottom, that is actually being held up by the casing itself. So that is work that be done. There's some other ones that do not even have a slab, and that would be an opportunity to correct, to pour a slab 6x6. Generally, we'll give up to 60 days on that. And the one at the bottom left, bottom right, sorry, that is not secured either, nor has a slab. And the raw water sample tap is a 2-inch PVC pipe, as you can see there, painted blue. Now, if you come across a spring, it needs to be protected also. This spring was not protected, and the water would recede when the demand for water was greater than the flow. So any surface bugs that are flying around there could follow that water down and get trapped inside. So we had them put on a cap with a screen, and now that's what it looks like here on the right as the spring continues to flow. There's some more that have security and some that don't have security. You can see a well all by itself out in the pasture where any animal can walk up to it. We have a fence around a well and tank area that has been cut open and anybody can walk into. So we'll see those things and then we'll write them up. What we like to see is a nice well house up there that you can see on the top right, and inside down below is what the well looks like in there. It's nice and clean, it's sealed, nothing's getting in or out unless they can unlock that door. Security continued here for wells, tanks, pumps, and facilities. You can see signage on the top of the photo there. That's the way we like to see it. We don't like to see the photos down below is the same facility all the way around without one sign on there. So if there is a problem here and a resident sees it or someone just walking by, at least they can get a phone number or the company's name and call them that there's a problem with their facility. So it's important to have signage up. This way, keep people out too. Disinfectant compound, we'll look at that. This picture shows liquid chlorination inside a housing that has a false bottom, so that if it does have a spill, the danger is below your feet. And of course, that needs to be cleaned up and fixed if that happens. And we just have a little diagram here on the left of what one looks like. Do not use pool or spa chlorine. As you can see in this photo, it is used for pools and spas. That would be a violation and a letter would be drafted. What we want to see is NSF approved labeling and container. Next photo here will show that label at the bottom right, the bottom left, sorry, where it says NSF. Now we can have other containers like the pellet container that sits on top of that well above it. You'll see 2-ton chlorine that is usually made on site, and that also needs a repair kit. We also see gas chlorination in the cylinders that you can see are standing upright below that with chain to scales, or we might find ultraviolet light, which is down at the lower right there. They have redundancy so they can shut one down, clean it up while the other one disinfects. Now we have a gas chlorination addendum that is not in the inspection report, but it will be attached to the inspection report if you have gas chlorination. You can see we go through making sure the cylinders are stored upright, they're stored away from other gases, they have a scale so we can see the weight and it's recorded on paper. All cylinders are secured to the scale by a chain or other approved means. There's an outlet at the bottom of the room so that it can escape any gas that's going on. So people walking in there, that should activate as soon as you turn the light on, the fan should come on and it should be near the floor. On the next page of the disinfectant recommendations for gas chlorine, we look for gas mask or a self-contained air supply. Generally, that is supplied by the fire department, but there are some systems that do have their own gas masks, and they should be sitting outside of that room, not inside. We always should have a bottle of strong ammonia available to check for leaks, a leak repair kit for 1-ton containers, and the chlorinators are housed in separate rooms with the rest of the supply. So not to have them in the same room, or you could have a big accident and all of it's ruined. And of course, the weight of the chlorine cylinders are recorded. We also have a surface water or a GUDI amendment. This may be for surface water, and I believe it is. And we'll go through the whole list, but we'll cut it short here anyways, as this is a long list as we look through what surface water provides for treatment. And then the treatment requirements on page 6 of the inspection report starts whether or not you have treatments, yes or no. If it's a yes, we'll list the type of treatment and the contaminant that you are removing in that box next to it. If you're doing 4-law compliance monitoring, we'll go over that and check for that. Unapproved bypasses we look for, and we want to see an approved operation and maintenance manual. We want to make sure that ADQ has received this manual when the ATC AOC was provided. Now, some systems have point of uses and point of entry. This is one page. This is all that we have on here. We'll fill it out at the top about the system, and we'll go through if it has been approved by ADQ. Do they have maintenance and operations for it? Does the public water system have an approved POE or POU maintenance plan? And of course, we're going to be looking for a mechanical warning to ensure customers are automatically notified when maintenance is due on their point of use device. And of course, we'll look at public water systems that have been sampling its POU treatment devices according to ADQ approved sampling plan. And you can see the little box saying yes, compliance with MCL or no. So finished water storage tanks are very common. So we're going to look at their security, their foundations, overflow pipes, air vents with screens, drainage away from the tank itself. Does it have a roof or watertight cover? And is the drain valves air gap from any sanitary sewer? We'll also want you to give us photos of the hatch being locked and the gasket that is on it. So you'll have to open it up to take a photo of that. And we're going to see whether or not you have a working gauge, automatic gauge, or alarm, or how else do you know that this water tank is full or being emptied. So this is on page 7 of the storage tank requirements on the sanitary survey. We just went over, we're going to look at the air gap from the sanitary sewer or storm drains. I have some photos that we can look over here. This is what a foundation looks like when it is clear of vegetation. The foundation metal ring is exposed all the way, and the tank itself sits on top of the gravel and not in the ring itself. We want to see the lower lip. This is the picture of the same tank, just showing the front and back sides of it, cleared all the way around. And of course, it has fencing there, as you can see. There's another tank that's cleaned out. I'm just trying to point out the water that is running out between the two tanks. This is storm water being directed away from the tanks. This is how it should look, that we can see that water is being drained away and not onto the foundation itself. And inside that ring, it's nice and clean. The tank sits on top of it, It is a poly tank. The picture on the right side there, their security is someone living there. This doesn't make it. It will be a recommendation to put security up and to clean up the vegetation that you see around the tank currently. We have another picture of the single wide manufacturer home, someone living on the property, making sure no one messes with the tank. We still would like to see security around it with fencing, where this person could take their dog to the vet, or they may even visit the doctor themselves and no one's watching the tank. Also, the other problem we see here is the tree next to it is touching the limbs against the tank itself. We prefer to see it as you see the concho tank on the right as fencing. All the vegetation is cleared out around it. And then we look at some overflow screened and air gapped. Over there on the right side, that's an overflow that is not air gapped and it goes to a sanitary sewer. So we asked them to take that piece out and make it an air gap. And he's demonstrating that the air gap is a good foot, which keeps sewer gas from floating, rising up and floating on top of your tank, which doesn't sound like something you would want. So we'll look at storage tanks here for their gaskets. As you can see, we want NSF approved gaskets, not an inner tube, as you can see in that photo. We don't want anything that you can float down the Salt River with, securing it. So NSF approved gaskets is what we like to see, and you can see them at the bottom there. Also looking at the storage tank vent screen. We want a picture of it. Sometimes it's hard to get that photo as it has a hood over most of the vent screens. So this one here is a very good photo. You can see the screen's in good condition. And then there's an overflow with a drain all sitting inside a spillway with screens on them attached. Then as we go on to the pressure tank requirements, we see that we want to see a working gauge. It needs to be working. It can't be broken, or we'll cite that and you'll have to get a new one on within 30 days. We also look for a pressure relief valve, as you can see there with the photo. It's a small copper piece that's directing away from the tank itself when it discharges. There's also a recommendation that we see a water level gauge. If you're in a freezing part of Arizona and this has frozen and broke, a lot of times the inspector won't require you to put one back on because we don't want you to lose your water. And if you live an hour and a half away to fix this, you could be out of water if this broke and all the water would discharge out of your hydro tank. In the picture down below, you can see a hydro tank that was placed in service about 2 decades ago and no maintenance around it, cleaning it up. And you allow trees to grow. It's something we're going to ask for them to secure by fencing, and please clean it up. So we're going to go through the system, and generally as an inspector, I might stop to use a restroom where I'll turn the water on and see if it's adequately pressurized so that I can wash my hands. If I find a trickle of water, I will start looking closer at the distribution lines and look for gauges that tell me what the pressure is. So we like to see 35 to 80 pounds of pressure in a distribution line, but it is set at 20 psi before you get a violation. And the other photo there is a testable backflow device. This device is owned by the system itself, so the system would be responsible for testing this backflow device. All other ones are on customer properties or tested by the customer. And one thing that the water system has to rely on is if they don't get this tested each year, they have the option to shut the water off until they get that tested and prove that it passed. So community water systems are required to have an emergency operation plan. There are 13 categories that we look for in a plan for EOPs. It's a yes or no, you have it in an area that we can see it. The rest of it's going to be checked off, and we're going to keep this plan in an easy, accessible location. And it has to have the minimum requirements of those 13. And here are 13 again, numbered, the first 7. So I want to know what you're going to do when you lose your source. Now, most systems that are communities have 2 sources or more, or they have adequate storage. But if you can run out of storage, then you need to have a entity that will send you water either by hauling water or getting bottled water. And it goes on to for supply loss due to major components, damage to power lines, contamination of water through the distribution on a backflow. What will you do if you lose your storage tank? A break in transmission line? How will you repair it and disinfect it? And chemical or biological contamination of the water. The next 6 are provisions of alternate source of water. Where are you going to get your alternate source? Some systems do have a consecutive connection with other systems, and then they should write that down and add that in their emergency operation plan, that they will open that valve and get permission to open it. You will have to know the procedures of contacting your regulatory agency, if it's ADQ, Maricopa County, or PEMA, and also the media and users will need to know this information, as a lot of them you can send out through emails. Disinfecting and testing once your service is restored. What is that like? How are you going to define that? Identification of critical components that will remain in service. So you'll have a list of that. Also, critical spare parts and inventory. If you have a large one in a big warehouse, that's great. Have it listed on a separate page. If you have a small one, we may walk in there just to look to see if you have redundancy for booster pumps and other services like your meters. And of course, if you're a big system and you have more than 2 people that need to be trained, we want to see who's trained on this system. There are some systems out there that just have an operator and a maintenance guy, and they know what the plan is. This is the template that we have on our web page. This is page that tells you all the things about the emergency operation plan that needs in it. And then I believe this #1 public water system overview with map starts on page 3. Now you can download the template by going to www.azdq.gov, sanitary survey, scroll down, and you can download this template. We'll talk about security about your pumps. You can see in the picture here on the left side, it only has 3 walls. It is open to the elements, as you can see it being blasted by the dust, sunlight, and they're missing a pump as it went down on them and they failed to replace it. So that would be a violation that they do not have redundancy on another booster pump. Plus, we want a door. As you can see on the right side, one that has redundancy, has 2 booster pumps, pressure gauge, and a door entry. As you can see through the shadow, take a photo. Looks really nice in there and clean. So we'll talk about some ATC AOC. This is also in our inspection report, as whether or not you have replaced anything in the last 5 years, we're going to want to see it. We may already know about it, or we may have an ATC but no AOC. You do get time to put in your AOC once you have finished your approval to construct whatever you're using or replacing. You could be extending water lines, or you could be adding a new storage tank. But you can download it here at that website, and it looks pretty much like this once you hit that other one, and it goes down to download the ATC application. Now, we do give you a little bit of heads up on the fee the construction plans drawing, the design for it. If you need a new source analysis because you drilled a new well, we also want to see the notice of intent to drill a new water well. Now, if you have a water service agreement, if the water source that is provided by someone other than the applicant, and you're expanding, extending service lines or main lines, then you're going to have to do an ATC form for that. And there it is. We have examples out of this site for ADQ. You can look at water line design reports. You can look at water line construction drawings, storage tanks construction drawings, well construction drawings, and booster pump construction, all downloadable. Now we'll go on to the approval of construction. The primary component for the AOC are as-built plans. This is when you're done, and before you start using it, you need to get this approved. You have pressure and leakage testing, you have disinfectant testing, you have your bacterial testing results, operation and maintenance manual, and that's for new treatment. And we like to see those manuals, and they get approved by ADQ. And there at the bottom, you can hit the download that application to fill it out. So we get to page 8 of our operator's requirement in the sanitary survey. Is the operator certified at the correct grade? If you have a grade 3 or 4, you need an on-site operator. Do you have an on-site operator? Yes or no for 3 or 4? And of course, your relief operator should no lower than 1 grade below the system. So if the system's graded 3, the relief operator can be a grade 2. Doesn't matter if the on-site operator is a grade 4, we go by what the system grade is. So now we have remote operators. Do they live within 200 road miles from the facility? Does the remote operator inspect a grade system 1 or 2 at least monthly? And then we'll see the last date of the inspection. A lot of times this is very easy for us, as we'll look at his paperwork that is posted for maybe his Myrtles, and we'll see his last entry. It's generally done monthly. So does the remote operator instruct, supervise, and provide written instructions to the on-site representative? This has been a problem in the past, and we're trying to resolve it, as some operators that are remote just show up, take a sample, and move on. They need to inspect the system where they're there monthly. So if you are asked to go to download the operator monthly inspection form, this is on the ADQ's website, or you can download it off this slide here as it is active. This is the front top page of the Certified Operator Monthly Inspection Form. You can fill out line 1 or section 1 of this and then make copies, because that about the system should not change. So the inspection of the operator would write down the date that he showed up, his arrival time, and when he left, and of course his name. Also the owner or responsible party, whether or not they were present. And then on page 1 continues, it goes over what you should look at through the well, what you should look at if you have storage tanks. If you don't have storage tanks, then non-applicable can be checked. And on page 2, we'll go over booster pumps. As you go down, whether or not you are leaking, do the valves operate? Is the booster pump's condition adequate? Does it deteriorate? Then we'll go there. You go over the disinfecting equipment, whether or not you have approved NSF labels on it. The injection system is operational, and it goes on down to your daily log is properly maintained. Paperwork and reporting requirements are down there too. Are you sampling monthly, been filled, and the date and location. At the bottom of that page 2 is a summary of your observations or any type of recommendations. And then you sign it, date it, and then provide it to the responsible party. Again, where it says download operator monthly inspection form. That is not on this form. It just happens to be on this slide, and you can click on that and it should take you to that. On page 8, where the inspector will now write down his observations, recommendations, and any potential deficiencies will be placed in that area. Of course, if you have any inventory changes, a lot of times it's an activation or inactivation of a component, whether or not disinfectant is going to be added. Did the administrative contact change? We'll check all these boxes that are applicable. And even if the population has changed, we'll write down what the old population is and what the new population will be. Same with the service connections. So the inspectors have a pre-inspection checklist also. So we'll start with the consumer confidence report. Of course, if you're not a community water system, then this is going to be non-applicable. If you are, we're going to say yes or no on this. Are you with the monitoring assistant program? Yes or no on that one also. We're going to look at how many EPDSs you have and if you have any changes for that. So this is what it looks on down for the inspector's pre-inspection checklist. We're going to look at turbidity. A lot of times that's non-applicable, but if you're surface water, it will be a yes. If it's a no, then you're not in compliance. And as we go down, you'll see the map will have a check mark. So if you're on quarterly sampling for nitrate, you will do 3 samples, MAP will do 1. There is work in progress where MAP will do increased monitoring, but that's still in the works. So look for that if we get that approved. And then the rest of it's down there on whether or not you're taking your radiochems or combined uranium, generally only for community systems. This is the system sketch. It generally can be this simple. Well goes to the chlorinator, storage tank, EPDS, and then on to the distribution. Some are complex. They have multiple EPDSs. They have several wells. They have plenty of storage. They might have 1,000,000-gallon storage to 500,000-gallon storage. All that will be listed even as big as your system's going to be. So last slide here, we'll go back up to page 1 of the sanitary survey, where we're going to re-look at, is the certified operator the correct grade? Is the physical facilities, were they all intact? We like to see all yeses to be in compliance. However, if any of them are no, we might look at the middle one here at the box, which alleged deficiencies were noted during the course of inspection, but all deficiencies were corrected by the close of business day, and then we'll take no actions result. Now, if we had to check the last box there, the alleged deficiencies were noted, additional correspondence may be forthcoming. And then one of the boxes down here, the bottom 4 will be checked. Hopefully it's the second one, not correctable within the reasonable period of time, and we'll give you whatever days we have agreed upon. It could be from 30 days to 90 days. Management can approve 120 days, but it has to be something that has to have time to be done so we know about it. What we don't want to see checked is evidence of a pattern of non-compliance. This is going to be checked if you were called out on the last inspection and the inspector comes back out and it's the same problem. So we may check that saying that you're not doing the job to keep this from happening. And one that we don't like to check would be a significant risk to any person, the public health, safety, or welfare of the environment. So that contains the rest of our presentation. If you have any questions, you can go for more information at adq.gov/WQD. And again, my name is Stephen Vogel, Inspector Enforcement Officer here for ADQ, and my phone number and email is there. So thank you very much.